This is Roman Prokopchuk, and this is the Digital Savage Experience podcast. Today I have with me Dane Knighton. Dane is the author of 4 published books and a strategic partner of several 7- and 8-figure businesses. Thank you for joining me today.
Cool, man. Let's do this.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
Okay, cool. So I'll go back because I'm still pretty young. I'm 21, so I'll go back to I guess the childhood, right? It's not many years, even though I don't like to think that way, right? So act with some urgency. But anyway, so I grew up in South Africa, much like Elon Musk, I like to say. But I grew up actually relatively poor. I lived basically in my cousin's house for most of my life, really always moved around. At a young age, I was living in a room with my mother. We basically had everything repossessed, even the car. So it was pretty screwed in South Africa, right? And then mother, father divorced at a young age. Father basically lived in like a township in South Africa. I pretty much had a very lonely childhood. I came here, which I'm at now in the UK. I came here at 9, fresh off the plane, not being able to speak a word of English. And then eventually, after failing in school, I think twice English, and being basically addicted to video games, as probably most teenagers are. And then I think I was around 16 years old, or around 15 or 14, whatever. I got really bad anxiety, and pretty much since then, that made the video game addiction really bad. I got very isolated and lonely, I guess, which we maybe delve into later. At the age of 18, I had really bad acne. Almost killed myself. That was the second time that almost happened. Yeah, it was very, very close, because I couldn't take it anymore. I was very insecure. And it wasn't just like normal teenage acne. I went to the dermatologist and I was diagnosed with severe cystic acne. To give you guys a picture, what that looks like, it's basically if you've ever had a blood blister, right? So if you can just imagine that all over your face, you're not always going to be smiling, right? But there's a way I got through that, which we might dive into a bit later. And then basically for doing that, I had really bad cystic acne. I've pumped out about 700 YouTube videos, absolutely free. Only made one offer, but still I was broke as hell. So, and now fast forward a couple of years later, I'm here. So yeah, that's the quick story.
How did you kind of end up writing the 4 books and making the decision to write the first one?
That's a good question. I guess it just comes down to action, right? So, I mean, a lot of people say like, I always want to write a book and I always want to do this, right? And I just think it's pretty simple if you ask me, right? You just sit down and you start typing, then you start typing again. And I don't think, to be honest with you, the actual writing per se is not on Stephen King's level, right? It just isn't, right? That would be delusional. However, the message and the value that I put into the book and the purpose of the book will far outweigh the investment, right? So if you paid X amount for the book, if you use just 1 or 2 things, right, you'll make 10x, even 100x, right? So that's why I wrote the book. Again, it's not on Stephen King's par, right?
No, that's awesome. And obviously kind of your field is copywriting and obviously storytelling in that sense. So I think what are businesses looking for now, or how can businesses really use storytelling, especially in this global environment where companies are remote and, uncertainty in terms of the global pandemic?
That's a real good question. So I'll kind of give you a two-barreled answer. So the first one is people don't like if we all think about the listeners, you and I, we all think about our buying behavior, right? Like when do you really click on an ad that's like proper pushy or like real cheesy, right? Almost never. However, I'd say, in my personal opinion, most of the selling is done before you actually get to the sales page or the sales mechanism, right? I mean, that's still important. But if you can use storytelling to convey your message in what kind of selling without selling in a non-resistance way, right? You can actually give someone a new perspective, right? Or an insight, however you want to call it. You just shift their beliefs. And just by shifting their beliefs, you can get them basically to buy your product. And here's the best part, to continue buying your product, and you'll increase the lifetime customer value, right? So you're not just kind of, if you think of this way, you're not just going in for the one night stand, you're going in for marriage, right? So that's what storytelling is real powerful. Basically doing identity marketing. And in relation to the current situation that we're all in, right? Um, one of the best things you can ever do is just reframe a situation. And again, it just brings back the perspective. So, for example, I'm working on a promotion now for the listeners. If you're doing any marketing or any sales, right, you can actually use this pandemic, if you want to call it that. You can use it to your advantage by saying, look, this pandemic's happening, but that's exactly why you need to get in, because while everyone's looking the other way, you need to start gazing this way and take the opportunity, right? So just use the reframe. Does that answer your question?
No, yeah, that makes sense. I think a lot of people kind of shut down now, but I mean, it is, scary and in certain times in terms of the global economy and stuff like that, but you can still position yourself for regardless of what happens after to kind of take the right steps to when you come out of it, be in a better place.
I mean, yeah, for sure. Like a lot of people at this current time have been, laid off. However, at the same time, I know a lot of people that are hiring and things, right? So there's always, if you really look for it, right, it's if you have a three-dimensional view of things, I think there's always opportunity. I mean, I'm still probably young and ignorant, I understand, but I think that's true.
Yeah, I mean, there still are opportunities, like you said. Some companies are laying off, some people are hiring, but really figuring out what you kind of want to do, and if you are one of the people laid off, maybe pivoting to something or a company that is more, I guess, future proof in that sense, in terms of your job, or even you may need to switch a career. It's kind of doing what you need to do in the current time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I was just reading a book last night, and it's called for if the listeners want to get it, it's pretty good actually. Sacred Cows by Gareth Gunderson, I think that's the way you pronounce it. And he was just talking about how the cause and effect of how money actually moves, right? So again, money moves to value creation. That's really the effect, right? So if you can find a company and you can create value for them, they will happily reward you financially.
Yeah, I agree, and it's kind of what your value is also. So finding something that, or becoming an expert in something where like you're invaluable and you can obviously command the compensation that you feel like you deserve.
Yeah, yeah, 100% agree.
So, what motivates you to succeed?
Oh, that's a good question. I need to steal that question. Um, uh, it's partly background and family. So I personally, I don't really want to ever be where I was when I grew up. Um, and yeah, I've always kind of acted um, outside of myself, right? So again, with people think, like your why, I guess you could say, it's never about me really. Like if I work, whatever it is, like 16 hours a day, whatever, it's to support my family, for example.
No, I agree, and obviously, family is an important driver, and motivations are different for every person. I think they're also different in terms of the stage of life you are. So, obviously, if you have a significant other, a spouse, children, usually people say it's that. If you're looking for freedom and independence, having a lifestyle that benefits, it's that. So, I think it's what part of your life you're in, and what's right for you at that moment as well.
Yeah, sure, sure, sure.
So, what's one thing you may have seen as a weakness in yourself in the past that you've turned around and utilized as a strength today?
Oh, um, well, here's the thing. I don't think I'm the naturally the smartest person. Like if you talk IQ or anything, like I was never in school. I was kind of like a, geez, I don't know, like an E student, maybe a C student at the best. But I just keep knocking at the door. Really, I'd just say consistency and just taking action. Really. So, and like it goes back to the reframe to your question, right? So basically anything that's a negative you can just easily switch it into a positive, right? I mean, for example, I do copywriting. you know um yes, you need to be good at writing per se, and in my opinion that's not my strongest part. But one of the best things about copywriting is if you can kind of, if it's not exactly true, but if you can kind of dumb your writing down so it's very simple to understand, so people get your idea immediately, and you write like as in like a a third grader can understand. It's way more persuasive, right? So there you go. I failed English twice in school, and now in fact it's actually a good thing. So just reframe.
Yeah, and I think it's the audience you're talking to also. But like you said, having it being understandable in terms of message and clear. I've had in marketing clients that are kind of in the legal vertical, so law firms, lawyers, and a lot of the times, depending on the type of law. So if you're doing criminal defense, usually certain crimes, the IQ level of those criminals are a lot lower. So if they're looking for a defender, you want to kind of make it as simple as possible and talk, like you said, a third grade level. Whereas if something like white collar crime, you may want to get a little technical or a lot more wordy based on the target audience is now college educated, usually corporate professionals.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, it all comes back to identifying of your market, right? Like same as storytelling. And that's what it all comes down to, I guess.
I agree. So what's one piece of advice you have for the audience, personal or professional?
Personal or professional. Uh, One piece of advice, and it goes back to marketing and just life. And I've just my reticular activation system has literally been on this for the last past few months. So I'm pretty excited to share this insight. So I think it's just getting perspective, right? So questioning your own assumptions, and whenever there's a situation that's maybe not going well, right? So for example, I had acne, right? I could have cried about it. I could have been depressed. Okay, sure, I was at times, right? But I had perspective by giving back, right? The moment you stop looking at yourself and start giving to others, right? Then it's basically like a camera. Instead of like taking a selfie, then you're taking out something else that's a lot potentially better, right? For others. So yeah, definitely having a new perspective, whether it's you having to change your thinking or perhaps getting help from a third party.
Yeah, I agree. And I think getting that perspective is also becoming or coming kind of in touch with being self aware. So, understanding what are your, limitations, strengths, and weaknesses, accepting them and kind of focusing on your strengths, and obviously having people around you that can maybe handle the weaknesses. I mean, weaknesses in terms of professional skills. So you may not like to do taxing or taxes or accounting for your business. Obviously, if you start out, you might need to do it, but then you outsource it or bring somebody in so you can focus on the things you're passionate about and that you're basically an expert in.
100%.
So I really appreciate you stopping by today. Can you let the audience know how they can find you?
Sure. I mean, I do strategic partnerships and copywriting as well. So if you're interested in that, just go to www.daneknighton.me.
Awesome. Thanks again for stopping by.